Buddies on this Monday, the 12th of February 2024. Great to have you here, and hopefully we've got a good show lined up. What's that? Something weird going on. Oh, it's a mouse. There we go. My apologies for that. Let's get stuck in, shall we, and see what's about on this Monday. That noise you can hear, that cacophony, is my geese. They've now stopped. They want something to eat, clearly. And I've already fed them. There you go. All right, what have we got going on? We're looking at dollar CAD for some reason. I must have been looking at that earlier because it is a game changer bar. There you go. It's also where I need to go back to. But first up, as always, gold versus the dollar. And gold versus the dollar. Gee, I want to short this, but look at the support that's underneath it. It's really, really tough to short this at the moment. Maybe today, if we get a buyer bar, I can short it underneath here and get some profit in the bank before we hit there. That might work. We'll see how we go. That, of course, is speculation at this point. In that we're going to get a buyer bar. I don't know. Let's investigate and see if we've got a breakout to be had on the 1 hour chart. It is tight little range, I suppose, that we've got here so far today. Pivots dead ahead, so I wouldn't want to be trading long unless this bar can actually break through there in the next 3 minutes and pull back off it. So I doubt that I'll be trading this. And of course, you've got this double bottom sitting here as support as well. Doesn't look great for a trade for me. Share. Am I not sharing? Gary, you're not seeing my chart. Is everyone else seeing my chart? Can anybody see my chart? Okay, I'll try and share again. Oh, Paul, you've got it. Thanks, mate. Gary, you must have an issue your end if you can't see it, buddy. I don't know what that would be. Sounds kind of weird. Anyway, for the point of the exercise, let's go through and explain what we would be looking to do. We're looking to trade the breakout of the Asia session, basically, and obviously throw in a few parameters around that. Do I really want to trade into two pivots sitting there? That's going to offer some resistance, one would think. And do I really want to trade into a double bottom? And that is obviously another no, I do not. Let's see if there's any chance that we can get money in the bank before that double bottom. Well, I'm pretty sure we can't, but let's put the parameters in. So Asia session is the second bar. So that is not the high at this point. That one there is the high, and that one there is the low. Which means, and for those of you who haven't seen this before, we are looking to trade the breakout of the high of the Asia session range and the breakout of the low of the Asia session range. And we include today's bar. So if this was to poke through here in the next 30 seconds, unlikely, then that would become the new high, or if it went down there, that would become the new low. So here's the risk that we would have to take. We would trade both a long and a short if they weren't there, and if they weren't there, we would trade it long and short and cancel whichever one didn't trigger. So if we get taken into the long, we cancel the short. We get taken into the short, we cancel the long. We exit at the first pivot after the breakout. So that would be here. So the reward is terrible. And the reward on the downside, if you went to the nearest pivot, $4.50 versus about $5 or $4.80 or $4.90. So that's not too bad, but I can't ignore this. I can't ignore this double bottom. And it looks to me as though this wants to range. and that may well become the bottom of that range. So no for me. Once again, another Monday no. That's not to say that it doesn't work. Let's have a look and see what would have happened last week. Doesn't look good, I'd have to say. I'll need to put the pivots around that to see if it would have worked or not. Let's do that. We want to see DR1, which will color green, and we want to see DS1, which will color red. And inputs, we need to show all support and resistance level. That is now true. That is good. That's what we want. So there we go. Go back to Friday, and Friday doesn't look like a good week to me. The high of the range would have been there. The low of the range is at the 9 o'clock bar. No, it's the 10 o'clock bar. So the low of the range would have been there, right there. So you would have been taken into the short, and you would have got hammered, and then it played out. That's not an unusual thing to happen, is it? You see that happen all the time. On Thursday, here's the high. That's quite clear. So it doesn't really matter where the low was. That was a winner. On Wednesday, the high would have been, where's the 9 o'clock bar? That's it. So the high would have been there. The low would have been here. You would have got taken into the short, and you would have got hammered. On Tuesday, the low would have been there. The high would have been there, and you would have got taken into the short, and you would have got hammered. On Monday, you don't even need to look at that. I know it was a winner to the downsides. So had you traded Monday, like I did not, you would have won. Tuesday, Wednesday, you would have lost. Thursday, you would have won. And Friday, you would have lost. So 3 winners, 2 losers. 3 losers, 2 winners. Not a good week for it, but it's been going pretty well. All right, so let's leave that one alone and concentrate. My goodness, it's 3 minutes past the top of the hour already. I've been yabbering. Updates on the 2 trades that I was in last week, and I will go first to Aussie versus the dollar. Aussie versus the dollar, we traded short underneath this bar here, and we got our TP1. We moved our stop loss to a safe position, which is a good thing that we did looking at this chart, because it came back and the trading stop got hit, break even trade. I'm actually a little bit biased short the dollar this week. That doesn't mean I'm bullish the Aussie. I'm not. So I'm thinking range here for the Aussie versus the dollar. We've got this resistance level up here, which is what we really played off last week, and price is back there again. So thinking range for that one. Kiwi versus the Swissy. Finally, we got into profit on Kiwi versus the Swissy. We've been in drawdown for the longest time, but finally it hit my line in the sand and bounced off it, and gave us some nice buying bars last week. Getting a little retrace gap down this morning. If it repeats that dose, then I'd be more than happy. TP1's up here, so I still not safe in the market, but I have moved my stop loss underneath the swing. I think now if that reverses, then these lows will be under threat, which is where my stop loss was. So Kiwi Swissy going okay. Kiwi had a good week last week, as a matter of fact, against most currencies. And hopefully that continues this week and we can get this into a safe position. They were the only 2 orders or trades that we were in and remained in. So let's have a look now at the weekly game changes, of which there are two about 7 or 8, I think. First one is Aussie versus the dollar. I'll go to the weekly chart and show you why. So lower than the previous, closed on or near its high. This is in a very, very downward spiral. In fact, it's like a waterfall, answering the rally that it went through. I like I like the candle. I like the level that it's at because it's come back to this breakout area. But like I said, not that keen on the Aussie. I think there's a better pair to trade versus the dollar than the Aussie. But if you fancy the Aussie and you've got a reason to think it can rally, then this is not the worst because it is at that support level. Aussie versus the dollar on the weekly may be worth a look. Swissy versus the yen suggests just barely in the top third of that bar and suggesting that we are buyers. And that's like asking me to jump off a cliff, and I won't be doing that. That's too far towards the top for me. I'd have to see that break and retest before I got interested in that. Euro dollar is the one that I think is best against the dollar this week. And I'll point that out in just a tick when I go and have a look at the, actually I'll do it now. I'll have a quick squiz at the, I'll have to go to there. Sorry about that. And change to there. So the dollar index, whilst it has been on a very, very strong trend, does look like it might be reversing at this point. I've got a couple of chart patterns sitting here. The weekly is probably more definitive than the daily, but you can see that little pattern there on the daily, which is this one here. So I see the dollar index as being at resistance. You can see it's got form through here as well, support through here. So that level's pertinent, and it looks like we're bouncing off that trade line. So I'm expecting a little bit of downside on the dollar at this point. The euro, obviously upside down version of that, is therefore at support and came off that support a little bit last week. I'm expecting that may continue this week. The Aussie I see as a potential false break, and that's why I'm not keen to trade Aussie dollar long. So I can see this candle last week has retested the break of that trade line, and I would expect that that gap there would be filled. The Kiwi, not dissimilar, and looks to be on the way down as well. The yen, should we look at the yen? Well, we should, and the reason we should is like this is a massive double bottom sitting here, and it's trying its little puffy valve to get a higher low. It's failing at every attempt, however. But if I saw that, I think I'd be just that little bit tempted to trade something against the yen short. The CAD, same as the Aussie really, coming off the top of that range, put in a lower high, expecting selling. And finally the Swissy, exactly the same thing, now broken the center line of that channel. I'd like to see a little pullback here on the CAD. So a little bit of a rally on the CAD, I'd short that as well. So it's tough to pick one against the dollar, except for this one. I think the euro is the best of the week if you are going to trade against the dollar. Had you traded the game changer bar, you'd probably be in that trade at the moment. I haven't done that. I've traded something else. I've traded euro versus the Aussie, and I'll show you that now. Euro versus the Aussie, although it is on the weekly chart at a resistance level, I don't mind it on the daily. On the daily, it's still at a resistance level, that being the trade line, but I'm anticipating a breakout here and to fill that gap up to the weekly trade line at that high. And I'm expecting and hoping that will go through it, of course. So I'll be monitoring this area very closely when it does get there. If it gets there, of course, it could go in the opposite direction. A little bit of a hint of an inverted head and shoulders here. And we're picking this up a little bit early maybe, but like I said on those indices charts, I like the euro at support, and I think the Aussie's on the way down. So that's why that makes perfect sense to me. Watch list this week is Aussie Kiwi, apart from obviously the euro versus the Aussie. Looks like I'm dead set against the Aussie, doesn't it? Had a big breakout last week on this chart, which has got me it's got my attention very, very much so. I think it was probably a little bit more about the Kiwi than it was about the Aussie, and I've got no idea what the fundamental driver of that was. But what I am seeing at the moment is this level here, which has been strong support, resistance support, support all the way through there. It's being tested at the moment. I would anticipate on the daily chart that I need to see a few highs in here before I could look to trade a false break of resistance. So therefore, I dive down to the 4-hour chart looking for a short here. But I can't see anything yet either. So I'm going to have to wait on this one to do something and give me a trade line up here so that I can actually trade a false break short or something of that nature. But that's on my watch list big time, as is Euro Yen. I spoke about Euro Yen on the weekly. Did I speak about Euro Yen the weekly? Maybe I didn't. It looks to be, and again, going back to those charts, those index charts, the euro looks to be at support, and the yen looks to be still looking for that higher low, which it can't find. So I'm expecting a breakout here. Daily, I'd love to see a pullback today. If I got that today, pullback on euro versus the yen, I would buy it tomorrow. But that's what I need to see. I need to see price come back down here or to break that high, then come back and retest the trade line. So that's kind of where I'm at. Gold, I'm still bearish gold. But given the dollar is like, my goodness, why did I do that? I was showing you something, wasn't I? That's a complete mess. So I won't go on with that. I'd have to tidy that up dramatically to do anything, but I can't see anything except support underneath the gold at the moment. We've got the trade line underneath it. We've got this trade line underneath it. We've got this horizontal level not too far away as well. So tough to get in here. I think gold would have to rally, and versus the dollar, given that I'm a little bit bearish the dollar this week, that may well be the case. So if gold was to rally a bit, I might find an entry short, but I've got to get some money in the bank before I hit this massive support level. That's me. G'day, Ash.
Hi, buddy. How are you?
I'm okay. How about you?
I'm all right. Did you enjoy the game?
Oh, I forgot all about it, man.
Well, that's why I checked if you had your beer.
Ah, I answered that, and I thought you were talking about what? I go, oh my God.
No, I was talking about the Super Bowl. Oh, I'm gutted. I wondered
Oh,
why you were quite
don't tell me the
brief.
result then. Don't tell me the result then.
No, I won't tell you the result, but I will tell you it's brilliant and well worth watching.
Oh, is it really? Cool.
Yeah, yeah, very, very good.
What a bugger. Actually, I couldn't have watched it anyway. I was flat out,
Oh, well, so it's
which is
all
why
good
it
then,
just
mate.
completely went out of my mind. But I can watch
Yeah,
the short version.
yeah. Well, definitely watch the short version. Definitely watch the short
I'll
version.
have
It's
to not watch any news events. You see, I haven't been in front
That's
of
the
anything
problem,
today.
isn't it? And that was
Yeah,
always my thing. I thought, could I go to bed and try and watch it tomorrow or something? But inevitably, as soon as I open up Google today, it's everywhere. So I can't
yeah,
do anything about it. Um,
that's right. Oh, I'm sorry, mate.
so
Completely missed it.
oh, no problem, no worries, mate, no worries. I mean, I was absorbed anyway, so it wasn't an issue. Um, I've just changed my screen to the same as yours. So I've got some ivory. Is it ivory you've got it's your background, isn't it?
Yes,
I quite like that. Probably easy to see.
there's nothing easy to see on this chart at the moment.
Not right
What a mess.
now. I have to say, I am struggling this week. So far, I had a look through all the data, um, to try and get sort of an idea of what I'd like to trade,
Hmm.
and the best I could come up with, which I think tells you everything, was the Swiss yen short. Um,
Okay.
this and I'm in already. I'm short with a stop at the highs, and I'll show you why. But really to sort of explain it, I think I'll have to start with the dollar yen. And what I'm looking at with the dollar yen, when I go out to this weekly chart on the dollar yen, I see a line here. Oops, this needs to be a different color if I'm changing to ivory. Let's make this black. There we go, and I'll ray it up. so it does the work for me. I see that line there, and the fact that we've broken through that line, and you know maybe and I'm not completely sold on where that level is. It might well be there. You know, there might be this point here, and we look like we touched that point, and maybe sort of starting to come down. Now, if I don't like the yen. The fundamentals actually aren't too bad, funnily enough, on the yen. So this is where it gets quite interesting, is that the COT data is supportive of further selling on the yen, and maybe just getting a little hint that there's some dollar buying coming in. The seasonal patterns aren't particularly supportive of the yen either, but the fundamentals aren't too bad on the yen. And any other currency, if you were to judge the fundamentals, you'd say there's no way that that it'd be so undervalued. And when I look at the yen, as I say, I can see that there may well be a level that we are returning to a potential resistance point. So I like this. I can't trade the dollar at this stage to the downside. We've got really important economic data this week. We've got
yes, indeed, CPI.
We got the CPI numbers, and the CPI numbers, of course, are going to be kind of one of the biggest drivers for the dollar. Everybody's not expecting, everybody's just waiting for that number, that metric, which kind of turns the market around, because it will maybe push Jerome Powell into a situation where he will start to cut on interest rates. The numbers so far aren't particularly supportive of him needing to do so, and I think that's where the difficulty lies with a lot of this stuff. But it kind of is out of sync with, I mean, if you like the world's factory, which is China, their economic numbers are totally different to what's going on in the United States, and you have to wonder how. It just doesn't seem to add up. So I think a lot of investors and speculators are thinking, well, it can't last then. What's going on with the dollar is an outlier. There's no way that the strong economic performance can carry its way through right the way into over the next 11 months and see 2024 as a bullish year. So I think a lot of people are expecting some weakness with the dollar, and maybe this week is the catalyst. But either way, difficult to trade it, because we don't really know which way it's going to go.
Yeah, that's
CPI
right.
comes in
I
strong.
forgot to mention that in my analysis. I did this morning, but forgot it this afternoon. That's why I didn't trade euro dollar.
Right.
I think because I've got to wait on that announcement.
Yeah, and it's the only way, because this could continue to bash. You say we're on a weekly chart here. This could continue to push to the upside and bash along here, maybe even break out and go through it. And as you say, quite rightly, it's the same with something like the euro dollar, which is, I agree with you when it comes down to where we sit. Look at that bar last week, right on top of this level of support here as well. So the technicals are kind of saying, you know what, you could take a swing at this one to the upside and see if we can get a rally, because we're due a rally in some respects if we're going to get some sort of reversal pattern. So not attractive to short on the price action, probably more attractive to short on the background information, fundamentals, seasonals, and COT data, but the price action is just not attractive here. And then you go to the dollar Swiss, and it's kind of the same deal. This would look to me more in line with something which could probably have a pullback at the very, very minimum. So I can't really trade the dollar long. And I think the Swissy is one of the worst looking currencies. And one of the interesting things that I was looking at this week is that when you consider what's happened to the Swissy, this is September 2022. Sorry, that's October 2023 actually. But if you look at this sort of like on the broader kind of market, really, right back since 2000, I think you could put it right back to 2019. 2019, we saw the swing down, and during COVID, we saw it swing up. Then when the tightening phase really sort of started to kick in, we saw the dollar tank against the Swissy. If you compare the same thing with a CAD, which I'm incidentally still in long with that one, the same deal happened. And you could, go right the way through this. Euro Swiss, the same thing. Everything's kind of weakening against the Swissy, while we go through this tightening cycle. This is a monthly chart, so we're looking at 3 years of upside for the Swiss franc. Now the environment's changing. The most binary assumption, in my opinion, is that the Swissy then weakens, after kind of getting so overbought, and it is way, way, way above the average price. If you look at the average price of the dollar Swiss over the last 12 years, we're at the lower end. We're at the lower end of that range, and this is since 2023. 2013, 2013. We're at the lower end of that range, so we're way below where the average kind of sits, and we may well be sort of like finding a slightly different paradigm. There could be a paradigm shift coming up, and if that's to happen, this would start to look pretty cheap. So when I look at that, I'd like to trade it, but which is why I'm holding on to the CAD Swiss. But when I look at this on a short-term time frame, it looks like the Swissy may just find a little bit of strength initially, and the dollar's got that data. But where it doesn't look the same is against the yen. The yen is similar, where the Swissy is, again, it's overbought. If you were to compare this over a long period of time, back 2019, same deal, sort of looking since COVID happened and the interest rate rises, the Swissy's been, really decimating most currencies.
It's ridiculous, isn't it?
But against the yen, it is ridiculous, as you say. And this is well and truly overbought. It's been in overbought territory for months upon months. So a pullback is likely. Is there enough to say that we are about to kind of change dynamic going into the future? Possibly. So that's the first thing. Then the price comes into play. So the price comes into play along here somewhere. Might be there. It might be there. Probably is there. That line I prefer, because there's more touches along there, and we're below it. So we've got a breakdown. We've got a retest. So all I'm really playing here is the assumption that some Swissy weakness is going to compound against everything, never mind it being the Swissy, and I have a technical pattern which gives me a price level. So that's why I'm going short on the Swiss yen this week, mate. I'm sticking with my CAD Swiss long, and I've got no
Kiwi Swiss. I think we've got it covered.
Yeah, well, this is I haven't covered my position yet, because I need a pullback and another rise, really, to sort of maybe. I could tighten these up, and I'm obviously not going to kind of allow it to kind of break through this trend line with too much aggression. But I will be, I'm going to start shifting this up relatively soon. But I'd like to get it, completely safe, and it's close. According to the trend line, I'm probably 3 or 4 days away before I can maybe put stops at break even, and then see if this one can just run right to the top, and we'll see what goes on.
And then if it gets through there, we're wrong.
And then if it gets through this point, yeah, exactly right. So yeah, that's what I'm looking at, mate. When it comes down to the indices, I see the FTSE is having a pretty dire old time of it right now, and looks like it's heading towards this lower level here. So I think the FTSE is probably coming down. What that's about, I'm not 100%.
Last week, I was keen on it last week.
Yeah, me too. I'm the same as you. I found the FTSE a little bit tricky, if I'm honest. The bounce caught me off guard. The strength of that bounce is well. In fact, the bounce didn't catch me off guard. It was these bars that caught me off guard. The wicks on them before I got the takeoff, because I did actually trade it long, but I kept getting taken out. I didn't sort of have decent stop placement. So I was finding this difficult on the time frame that I was trading it on. So that was no good. But the one I'm interested in actually is the China Stocks 50. Decent looking reversal pattern coming down here. And what I quite like about this is that it's relatively unloved. And you and I are both sort of like quite keen on the contrarian trade. this looks to
Mhm.
me like an area where the contrarian can start picking this up and going in the opposite direction. So I'm looking at this and wondering whether there might well be a boost to the upside on the China stocks 50 as well, on the China 50 as well, and I think everybody's got that on the chart. So I quite like this one for a long as well, but it's going to be another one of those longer term positions that you really want to get in and hold on to, and see if we actually start getting a rally. Same with oil. Oil's at a similar kind of price zone where we got this horizontal level, decent move to the downside, a rally, a move back down, bounced off that level. And I think we're close enough to the lower end of that to still make this attractive. But a bit of a pullback on oil, I'd be quite keen on getting into this one as well. So I quite there's a few things I like, but some of those particularly the Swissy is more of a thought process of thinking, well, if this happened then and we could be heading for a different period, that should happen this time, or that could happen this time. Because the COT data, not attractive, and I'll quickly show you what the COT data is sort of showing me. Unless George is in the room.
I looked at the charts this morning that everything I liked was at the wrong price.
Yeah. Same. Actually, I won't go through the COT data because George is in the room and he might be pushed for time. So, but I can tell you it's pretty flat. There's nothing particularly attractive.
Mate, you can go through.
Okay, cool.
I got nothing on index, but I'm watching a couple of currency pairs waiting for pullbacks, and if they come, I'll let you know. But
okay, all right. Okay, fantastic. Well, this is where we are with the COT data. I'll just run them all. Aussie is obviously pushing down, but we've already seen the move on the Aussie, and this is sort of like getting a little bit too deep to the downside, but it's still pointing that way. So I don't like Aussie for a reversal. I'm not interested in the long on that. The CAD, which I am long on, I now can't justify any further positions because it looks like there may well be a bit of profit taking going on. The Swissy totally flat, and that's what makes it a difficult one for me because I like the Swissy for further shorts, but it may not be in this area. There might be a little bit of strength coming in first. Euro, same as the Aussie. The move is mature now. There may well be some more downside, and I think there probably is, but I think we might be waiting for a little bit of a rally on the Euro. But that's against COT data. The pound is at a rally, and it's just started to shelve off a little bit here. So possibly some profit taking, definitely some a lack of buying pressure is starting to come into play. And as a kind of but buy versus sell kind of level, it's up at the higher end as well. So not interested in the pound. The yen, same thing as the Aussie and the Euro, where we could continue to see selling on the yen. Nobody's interested in that. The dollar had a little tick up last week, so there was a little bit more interest in the dollar. And this may well be something that starts to gather momentum. I think we need to wait for CPI data before having too much confidence in that. The one that comes out on top of the pile is the Kiwi, because we had a rally, we've had a pause, and now we're starting to see further COP participants look like they are quite happy to take the Kiwi on to the next level. My problem with the Kiwi is the fundamentals are pretty dire. So I don't feel with any real confidence that I could call the Swissy. The seasonal patterns aren't amazing either, but this week we've got some retail sales numbers. They haven't been particularly good. I think we've got some. What else do we have from Switzerland this week? There was a couple of the other numbers actually. I can have a look.
New Zealand, you mean?
Yeah, from New Zealand. Yeah. It seems. Do you know my problem with the Kiwi? Oh, the inflation expectations. They've been weakening recently. The retail sales numbers have been weakening recently. So there's a couple of data points this week from New Zealand that I don't think that they've been particularly strong. So I'm not that interested in that. The only thing is that Paul tells me that there are some RBNZ commentators suggesting that we might actually get a rate hike coming in. So I wonder whether this has moved on the commentary on the commentary. I don't really like to.
There's no doubt
Yeah,
about
he did
that.
have an amazing week, mate. Yeah, and it looks like it's moved off the back of that. I don't love trading off the back of commentary because it's speculation. It's they've got such a long time before their next well, they've got long enough, I should say, before their next decision to
By the
suggest that.
boomerang, tell the fact.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not interested in that one either, and the seasonals aren't supportive. So yeah, a bit of a struggle this week, if I'm honest, mate. But I've gone for the Swissy yen as a bit of a contrarian position, and we'll see what gives.
All right, cool. No thoughts of gold?
Yeah, I do have thoughts on gold, and my thoughts on gold are that we are probably mad not to get into gold on the long side.
Okay.
At some point. It's a tricky one. I think this is probably good enough down here to try and take a punt on this one. The reason for that, of course, is our fundamental reasons. I just think that there's just so much. Actually, is that silver? That's silver. I really like silver. But yeah, gold. I think that we're close enough to a support level here to sort of like suggest that we could be through
I've
this
got
level.
that strong support from
Yeah,
trend lines.
it could just go. Gold could go, and if it goes, I don't think it's going to come back. I just there's something waiting, in my opinion. When you see sort of like so much disparity, you've got China kind of weakening, you've got the United States in some respects strengthening, certainly comparatively strengthening anyway, and you've got all these things kind of going around. I don't know if you saw over the last week the interview between Tucker Carlson and Putin.
No, it flashed up on a notification, but I didn't watch it. No.
It's very interesting, mate, and it's not interesting because of the narrative necessarily, because a lot of what Putin is suggesting are a lot of things that I think a lot of people probably recognize is fair in some respects and true anyway. Not the reaction, but what he's suggesting that the West's position, going into the conflict. I think a lot of people sort of accept that that the West is culpable for as culpable, I should say, for the fact that there is tension, not a conflict, but there's actually tension. So nothing's hugely surprising there.
They're great stirring the pot. There's no question about that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then they poke their nose in places that they just
exactly.
Well, I'm talking about the States. I'm not talking about the West in general. But they are the West at the end of the day. When you talk about the West, that's who we're talking about.
Yeah.
They just poke their noses where it's not wanted or needed, and that's the real. And I'm assuming that's what he's probably on about.
Pretty much. I mean, that's the long and the short of it. Yeah. In many respects, asked not to, and there's that's where he sort of is putting the blame of the conflict, not in Ukraine or whatever. He did sort of talk about a little bit of history towards with Ukraine, but it was really sort of quite telling that he's pointing the finger at the West. But the thing that I found most significant was the fact that is on social media for millions of people to see. So we are in a situation now where if you want to have the other side of the argument, you've got it. When we think about what's going on with the press in certainly in the United Kingdom, it's very biased. It's very one-sided, and I'm sure it's the same with every country because they're obviously trying to control the narrative and the way that we perceive things. But here we've got a situation where the other side is now talking up, and the other side is getting airplay. Because of social media, because you can find it on YouTube. And that is something that I don't think that we've ever seen in history.
I'm going to say that is really, really different.
It's different. And when you think about that, my first thing is, right, well, when there's a shift, and we've said it for years, does that mean, is it possible that King Dollar comes down? If we get a situation like you and I watch the uranium market, if we get a situation where China, who are way ahead of the United States when it comes down to uranium development and making sure that they have ownership of certain areas with uranium. if they get to a situation they can control the energy market of the globe, they could then go into countries, and I heard somebody else say this, it's not my thing, but they could go into other countries and say, right, I tell you what, you give us wheat or whatever we need, food, and we will give you energy. Forget the dollar, we will barter. We'll go back to the barter system. We have this, you have that, we'll just barter. If you control the energy and you control the food, you control the globe, you control the power. So if that kind of thing is going on, what would you want to own? Well, you want to own gold. So that's why I keep coming back to gold and thinking, you know what, we might be looking like this is, as you quite rightly point out on the charts, that, we've got these kind of 3 spikes going on here. But something has changed, I think, since COVID. We had a situation over here where there was going to be an investigation to do with, the COVID scenario and how it happened. It's not happened. And it's not going to happen until the election. It's another one of those situations where you think, you know what, you're just making sure that we don't ask too many questions at this stage. And this goes on all the time. But things seem to be shifting. There are enough voices now out there that are changing their narrative. Is China about to strip the United States of the world power? It could be, and even if it only could be, you kind of want gold. So
yes,
I'm not talking about
position on that. Yeah,
you want to take a position. I'm not really talking about it as a trade, but I'm definitely talking about it as a long-term kind of position, and even on a trade basis. If that's look how well it's held. It's held these levels for months. For a couple of months. For weeks though. This looks to me like a long trade in this area until it's not. Would be my kind of view on it.
Interesting. I'm still bearish on it, but I haven't considered what you've just spoken about. I will give that some consideration.
Yeah,
that's very interesting.
Yeah, because you know what, with gold, it could well be a really good intraday market, just because every time it comes to this support level, it bounces. So it could be a great intraday market. No doubt it sells off, but it only comes here and bounces again. So the price point right now looks quite attractive to me. Even stops down at that point, you're still getting a 1-to-1. The stops at the low end of that that pattern, you're still getting a 1-to-1. So yeah.
As you say, if it gets through those 3 highs, and I know we're a long way from there, but
it
can get there pretty quickly if it takes off.
Yeah.
It could very well smash.
Yeah, problems in the Middle East. Same with oil, mate. It's oil is one of those ones as well that it managed to kind of push down to the lower end and hasn't really gone anywhere. But I find this quite interesting. We've got all these issues going on, and yet oil is not rallying. Something's not right.
Yeah. I'm not going to say that it's being manipulated in any way, shape, or form.
No. Well, you know what? It's difficult, isn't it? Because you haven't really got an ear in the room of the powers that be. But
no.
There's no question that decisions are made out of our hands and we are massaged to kind of like think in a certain way. And don't get me wrong, I'm not a kind of a big big on conspiracy theories or anything like that. I'm interested from a trading level, and from a trading level, I kind of like think, well, if you think there is going to be a shift, I think it might be sort of a good idea to have some gold in your portfolio.
It walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck.
Yeah.
Probably a duck, right?
Yeah, exactly.
George, how are those setups going, mate? What currencies are we looking at? We might be trading.
Yeah, let's. I was looking. I mean, I always start off by seeing what happens with indexes, and there's nothing much. So, I'm just going to flash through 3 of them. So, DAX until we get out of that trading range, there's nothing much for me to do there. UK 100, same kind of thing. I want to see if we break out beneath here, then, the usual stuff, breakout pullback. or if we come up and try and take out the high, we'll do that. Then S&P 500, so same kind of thing. So I said nothing much on the indexes, but I was looking at this breakout on Euro Yen and eagerly waiting for a pullback that didn't come, because usually I want a pullback to be pretty early, which would be an attempt to make it fail by the base and acceleration down. But this is still good because, well, when I say it's still good, and I'll look at it differently. I didn't get an early pullback, but if the bears are strong, if the pullback ends there, or if you get another little bit back, whichever, the potential for this to drop could be way down here, which means if I get a decent enough setup, maybe lower high double top at the EMA or something, if the bears come back in, there's still room to get in into that market, because it's gone quite a few, well, in the lives of a 5-minute trade, it's gone quite a way down. I want to wait for it to get to the EMA and see how we test that EMA. And that's, we had the same, that kind of came first. Then the euro trailed in terms of breaking out below a level. This is a concern, doesn't show strength at the moment, but the fact is the bears have been strong. So we're going to wait to see what happens when you get to the EMA. So those are the two that are pretty primary or early in my thinking. Swiss is given a bullish breakout. The bears tried to sell off and they failed. So Swiss is good. If this candle in the next 4 minutes ends up as a bull candle, then it's a prime one for me to look for a pullback and see how high the guys want to go. So that's kind of my thinking. That's what's near. Everything else is kind of in a zone where it says wait, just wait a little bit.
Yeah, I'm with you on the
Same
Swissy.
thing, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if it's US CPI looming that's causing that, or
Yeah,
is
there
this-
will be a bit of there'll be a bit of pushing around, I guess. Do you know what? I've got to say, I think the Swissy is just a weak currency. I'm looking at the Swiss yen. That's already going. I got into the position really early on, but it's already going. And I just had a quick look because you brought up the euro yen as well. So if you kind of consider that region, Europe and Switzerland are kind of like pretty heavily linked. I think the Swissy is maybe one on the table right now, which is just going to suffer, to the downside over the course of the next 3 months. I mean, I'm honestly looking that far out. And I think if you're looking to buy anything against something, the Swissy to me looks like the candidate for right now because of the potential shift in interest rate thinking. It's rallied hard as interest rates have gone up. Interest rates are paused. Are they coming down? If they are, people are going to take profit on this, I would have thought, or for whatever reason they bought it before, are they going to sort of shift their opinion? So yeah, I'm hyper bearish on the Swissy going into the next 3 months, maybe even longer.
If we can hold on to those positions, that would be nice.
Yeah, nice and free, isn't it? Won't bother coming to
100%.
work.
Work.
Yeah, so pretty late last morning. So, but that's all I got for today, gents. So
All
far.
right, buddy.
Thank
I
you.
think that's all we've all got. Unless there's any questions or someone wants to share something, then we will get out of here. And
Didn't see
I'd
the
like
Super
to-
Bowl, did you, George?
No, I'm
Oh,
sure. No, I will get what do you call it? A backdated
Replay?
live commentary from my brothers if I get hold of them. He's
oh yeah. Oh, you can't get hold of it there, can you?
No. I just haven't been in touch with them this weekend. We are away with other things here, but he's in the States.
Oh, right.
They live off this thing. That's like, how did it go? What happened? Give me
Oh,
some.
no,
Well, I won't say what happened
no.
because Jeff is going to watch it, but I will tell you
Oh
it was
no,
brilliant.
don't. Yeah.
It was brilliant. It's well worth watching. It really is a very, very good Super Bowl this year. Sometimes they're very boring, but this wasn't.
Oh,
Yeah,
then
sometimes they blow out, but
I'll
they're pretty
probably
good.
watch it before I read the commentary. Yeah.
Who was the halftime show?
Usher.
Who?
Usher.
That's
he was,
one of those dudes that talk like that, is it?
yeah, he's kind of like he's kind of a not as good version of Michael Jackson, which I know a lot of people are,
Oh, okay.
but he even went out with the glove and the silver top like Michael Jackson wore during the moonwalk sort of thing.
Yeah.
And he's just, don't get me wrong, he was okay, he was all right, but it was I was actually quite underwhelmed by Usher. I thought he was okay, but you know, because he sort of almost fronted himself like a Michael Jackson tribute in a way. He even went ow at one point. I was like, oh, now I'm thinking of Michael Jackson. You're nowhere near as good, so you've really sort of messed yourself up there. Why would you do that?
Aren't ever any good, are they? Really, at the end of the day, they should just leave it alone.
The halftime show, I've seen a couple of blinders. I've seen a few really, really good ones. But yeah, you're right, mate. It's a difficult stage to film, I think. You know,
Yeah.
Because the sound is so huge.
The best one I saw was Justin Timberlake. Recent times.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you like that one. Yeah.
No, when he was by himself.
Oh, George, just to give you some reference, watch the one with Justin Timberlake and Janet Jackson. That's the one I think Jeff's on about.
That's not the one.
Oh, okay, not the one when she exposed herself, is it?
Yes,
Yeah.
that one.
That...
That's the one that Jeff likes.
Wardrobe malfunction.
Oh, okay, again. Yeah, okay.
I'm going to get out of here. I'm going to get in trouble. Listen, thanks everyone for joining us. I know it's Chinese New Year, and if anyone is watching this who are celebrating that, please enjoy the festivities and have a wonderful. Is it Year of the Dragon? I think it is. Yes.
I went to a dragon dance yesterday, actually.
Did you?
With my daughter, yeah. Just down there's a really nice kind of Chinese food shop down the road. So we went there, and there was a big festival. Well, so big festival. It was a little festival, but they had a dragon dance and all the drums and all this sort of thing. It was really cool. Yeah,
it's
it was
a
really
lovely
cool.
time of year, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right, we're gone. Thanks everyone. We'll catch you next week. Thank you, George. Thank you, Ash, for being my trading buddies, and we will catch you next week.